To read that statement from Barnstable County, no examples. What examples? You know, the statement doesn't have any examples of what happened. You've been at these meetings. You know, nobody's been violent. Nobody's been doing anything at and the police. I want to thank the police department working with Cheryl and I think the other group to plan things out to avoid any violence. And yet to see this statement come out of Barnstable County, where does it come from?
Good evening. It is October 13th, and welcome to Cape Media News, your source for hyperlocal news that matters. I'm Lauren Williamson. Last week, the Barnstable County Human Rights Advisory Commission released a public statement against hateful and intolerant acts in the local area. The statement condemns racist and homophobic graffiti recently cited within the community, as well as the violence of a local white teenager who attempted to drown a black teenager in Chatham. Also listed, residents who have been protesting the housing of migrants at Harbor Suites in Yarmouth. Cheryl Ball, founder of the Cape Cod Concerned Citizens Facebook group, spoke up at this week's Select Board meeting to voice her concerns.
Good evening.
Hi, Cheryl Ball. And I wanted to address a couple of things that came up in the last couple of weeks. One thing was a letter that was published by the Barnstable County Human Rights Commission. And I believe this is a commission that Mr. Forrest is a part of. And there was a statement that was made in a letter. And by his approval, I have to assume that Mark Forrest is aware of this statement because it was approved unanimously, this letter that was published. And in that letter, there was a statement, and I do want to read that because I found it very upsetting. The statement read as follows: "We stand against the intolerance and hateful language incited at recent protests against temporary migrant housing." That's the exact statement. So I brought with me tonight a couple of the signs that our group holds at protests. You'll see this one says, "American Veterans First." This is a good sample of a sign. This is another one, "Close our borders." Most of our signs are like this. They say things like American citizens first, legal citizens first. I want to know, what about these signs can you classify as hateful or intolerant? Because that is not what our group is about. Our group is about having the laws that this country has be enforced as they were written and intended. And that is not happening right now with this migrant crisis that we're facing. Our issue is not with the migrants. We have not protested anything directed specifically at the migrants. They're here. I don't blame them for being here. If I were in their situation, I would do the same. Our issue is not with the migrants. Our issue is with our government. And I see nothing hateful or intolerant about our signs. And I would appreciate it if remarks like that were not made or endorsed by anyone on this board. So that's one thing I wanted to say.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm not a member of the Human Rights Commission, but as a county commissioner, I do involved in appointing the commission, and we have multiple boards that make statements that are entirely on their own. So those statements were made not without my involvement. They were made, but not with my involvement. Just so that you know that. We have that in the town of Yarmouth. We appoint numerous boards. They make decisions. They make statements. Sometimes, in fact, almost all the time when they render opinions or recommendations, they do those essentially on their own, and that happens at the county. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for clarifying.
Okay. I saw your name as listed as the chair of the county commissioner, so I assume that you were aware of this letter. So my apologies.
After the fact.
Okay. Well, I still would appreciate a statement from you saying that you do not support that statement, because I find it reprehensible the way it was worded, and the way it was directed. And if we're going to ever get past the division in our country, we need to stop making statements like that. Because the statement was also lumped in with thank you. It was also lumped in with another comment about a racial incident that happened in Chatham. So the way it was lumped together in that paragraph, you know what the intent of that message was by this Human Rights Commission.
The Hyannis Fire Department, the Steamship Authority, and the U.S. Coast Guard, as well as the State Department of Environmental Protection, responded to a fuel leak at the Dockside Marina in Hyannis this last Thursday. The DEP Public Affairs Director, Edmund Coletta, reported that the spill was estimated to be around 10 gallons or less. Moran Environmental, specializing in environmental services, was hired by the Steamship Authority to remediate the spill. Oil-absorbent pads were placed in the water to soak up the fuel and were later collected and safely disposed of. State environmental specialists are still investigating the cause of this spill. Barnstable District Courthouse at 3195 Main Street in Barnstable will be closed for 30 days starting next month on November 13th. The closure will give opportunity for restoration and damage crews to work on flood damages within the building. The damages to walls, carpets, and flooring were sustained back in August, when it reportedly rained 4.3 inches in less than half an hour. The restoration will be handled by Blue Sky Restoration Contractors of Carver, a flood response and remediation specialist. Robert Galibois, the Cape and Islands District Attorney, said last Friday on October 6th that his office enjoys a strong working relationship with the trial court and will remain available to cooperate with the court for the administration of justice. The Orleans District Courthouse also reported flooding and damages from the same rainfall back on August 8th. They have not finished the assessment of the damages just yet, but are anticipating to temporarily close for repairs as well. Once the plan is finalized, it will be executed as soon as possible in conjunction with the courts. The Chatham Chamber of Commerce and Merchants Association will be hosting an Oktoberfest celebration on Saturday, October 21st. It will run from 10:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at the Kate Gould Park in Chatham Town Hall. There will be games for kids, a beer garden, arts and craft vendors, and live music performed by various artists and groups. The event is sponsored by Cape Cod 5 and will be held rain or shine. For more information, you can head to chathammerchants.com/Oktoberfest. A 19-year-old David K. Sullivan was indicted last Monday by a Barnstable County grand jury for his alleged role in the tragic death of 17-year-old Sadie Marrow this past July. 6 people were on board a boat when it crashed into a jetty in East Dennis's Sassuat Harbor this summer. 2 were seriously injured, and Marrow, a rising senior at Dover Sherborne High School, was tragically killed. After a criminal investigation was launched into the crash, Sullivan faces charges of death of a person caused by operating a vessel while under the influence, possession of false RMV documents, minor in possession of alcohol, 2 counts of operating a vessel while under the influence, causing serious bodily injury, and reckless or negligent operation of a vessel causing death. Galibois' office, the Dennis Police Department, Massachusetts State Police, Massachusetts Environmental Police, and local dive teams all participated in the months-long investigation. Sullivan pleaded not guilty to all charges and is due back in court December 14th. Coming up after the break, Hack buys Eagle Pond, and more. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Cape Media News. I'm Lauren Williamson. If you weren't stung by a jellyfish this summer, consider yourself quite lucky. Regarded by many as the worst jellyfish season yet, this past summer saw a jellyfish population abnormally large in proportions and quantity, with some jellyfish found up to 4 times their typical size. Environmental researcher Nicole Corbett has set up a sting kits at Paponset and Craigville Beach, noting that 25 kits were used during just 1 week in August. Corbett, along with Barnstable Clean Water Coalition, is investigating how rising water temperatures and nutrient from septic systems may be affecting jellyfish populations. Accumulations of algae and seaweed along beaches and the arrival of jellyfish species not typically found in this area, like the Atlantic Bay nettle, which live in waters from the Chesapeake Bay to the Gulf of Mexico. Rising water temperatures create a more appealing environment for marine life accustomed to warmer waters, like the Atlantic Bay nettle and invasive species such as dassy, a seaweed native to China and Japan. Dassy is an ever-growing threat to the Cape ecosystem. Due to its high reproductive rate, dassy takes over areas by releasing thousands of spores as it drifts, using oxygen in the water and creating hypoxic conditions dangerous to other marine life. Corbett says solutions include developing filtering oyster beds in problematic areas to reoxygenate the water, and implementing more effective sewering and drainage systems to offset the roadway and septic runoff. Corbett hopes to educate people on the rapid changes observed in the waters around Cape Cod and especially Barnstable. The Massachusetts Department of Public Health has released a comprehensive respiratory illness dashboard. This dashboard is not limited to only reporting COVID updates. It also records and reports multiple viral diseases such as influenza and RSV. It is also upgraded in a sense from previous dashboards, where now it reports in real time seasonal data as opposed to the cumulative data. The information will be updated weekly at 5 p.m. on Thursdays. The homepage for the dashboard provides number of cases, emergency room visits, hospital admissions, and vaccine rates and disparities from the community as well. It also maintains wastewater monitoring for COVID-19 presence and acknowledges the evolving nature of the virus in light of immunity and vaccination. It recognizes that some COVID-19 cases are self-diagnosed at home, given milder symptoms. You can check out the new respiratory illness dashboard at mass.gov and type viral respiratory illness reporting into the search bar. South Dennis Healthcare, or Eagle Pond Rehabilitation and Living Center, has been sold to the Housing Assistance Corporation for $4.3 million. As of September 13th, 92 out of the 128 beds were occupied. The plans are to convert the facility into a family shelter program to address regional housing insecurity. Next Step Healthcare, the current occupant, will continue to lease the property during the transition, allowing time for state health officials to relocate residents and wind down the business in accordance with state regulatory requirements. Housing Assistance Corporation CEO Alyssa Magnotta said the owner approached the organization to buy the property in January, citing difficulty maintaining staff because of the housing crisis. Details were finalized over the past few months on the purchase and sale of the property. Next Step Healthcare was previously faced facility closures, including one in Wareham in 2021. The Housing Assistance Corporation is seeking zoning exemptions under the Dover Amendment to support the shelter program. The organization also emphasizes that the facility won't be used for migrant housing, but it is aimed to addressing the local housing crisis we face. Eviction filings have been back on the rise since the COVID-19 eviction moratorium expired in 2021. Benjamin Idienka, the deputy court administrator for the Housing Court estimated that 80% of housing court business consists of eviction or summary process cases. If you have been served a summary process complaint, don't panic. Most summary process actions end without an eviction or a forced move out. So what can you expect from the housing court? According to Massachusetts state housing trial data, summary process filings result in a forced move out only about 10% of the time. A solution is usually worked out through mediation, which is the first step required after filing and serving the summons. The Southeast Housing Court employs 7 housing specialists who are trained in alternative dispute resolution. Raymond Yox, the managing attorney of South Coastal County's Legal Services, the Hyannis office, says there is great motivation to come to an agreement during mediation because it's not only cheaper than going to trial, but a negotiated settlement usually yields a better result for all involved. While forced out move-out dates are not common, mediated agreements might include a voluntary move-out date at an agreed-upon time. With 80% of summary process cases due to non-payment, South Coastal County Legal Services now provides free lawyer for the day services for the Southeast Housing Court, which includes Dukes, Plymouth, Bristol, and Barnstable counties. Aryinka said that they try to stress to the legislature that the state representatives and senators that the court is only as good as the resources at its disposal, end quote. Other state government resources include residential assistance for families in transition, which provides monthly funds for families that are at risk for eviction, and the Tenancy Preservation Program. The TPP supports individuals and families facing eviction as a result of behaviors related to a disability, such as a mental illness, intellectual disability, or substance abuse disorder. Aryinka also shared that housing court officials understand the stress and the uncertainty involved in being summoned and strive to make the process feel as smooth, calm, and safe as possible. The Southeast Housing Court Barnstable session is typically held every second and fourth Wednesday of the month, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at the courthouse in West Barnstable. However, all sessions have been temporarily moved to the Plymouth Courthouse. For more information and housing resources, please visit mass.gov. Coming up after the break, state legislators give an update on migrant housing. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Cape Media News. I'm Lauren Williamson. State legislators were present this week at the Yarmouth Select Board meeting to give the public an update on the migrant housing issue. State Senator Julian Cyr and Representative Chris Flanagan attended the meeting in person, while Representative Kip Diggs called in from the road. Take a look.
But let me first start with the EA shelter program, because there's been a lot of questions about this. So Yarmouth has now joined Bourne and 78 other communities across Massachusetts in sheltering unhoused families through the state's longstanding Emergency Family Assistance Program, the EA program. This results in a 1983 law in Massachusetts that ensures that unhoused families are sheltered. This is commonly known as the Right to Shelter Law. And so the law, and therefore the program, applies exclusively to families who are residents of Massachusetts and who are living in the United States with the knowledge and consent of the Department of Homeland Security. To qualify for this program, you have to be a family with children under the age of 21 or to have a family member who is pregnant. You have to be a Massachusetts resident, and if you're a recent Massachusetts resident, you have to, and are an immigrant to this country, you have to be known to the Department of Homeland Security. You have to be here with the consent of the Department of Homeland Security. You cannot be undocumented and participate in this program. Our focus, Chris and Kip and my focus, has been to work with the Healey-Driscoll administration, with our respective towns, this in the case of Yarmouth, the town manager, the various boards, select boards, as well as public safety officials, county representatives, and charitable organizations to prepare as best as we can to accommodate these families and to minimize any disruptions as much as possible to the town or to our communities. In the last several weeks, we've organized several calls, including 55 partners across the region, to better coordinate and facilitate this work. We've been in close communication. We've offered to come before the board. We're here tonight, and we'll continue to remain in close contact with all of you, as well as officials from the DY School District. So the emergency shelter program in Massachusetts has been at capacity for now going on 11 months. This was a problem the Baker-Polito administration was grappling with that then has continued under the Healey-Driscoll administration. It's really being driven by two twin factors. The first is housing. We're short about 200,000 housing units across Massachusetts, and dozens of Cape Codder families and Islander families have been forced to live in hotels and motels that are unaffiliated with the EA shelter program, living in campgrounds, living in cars, and other substandard housing situations due to lack of our housing capacity. And so we've been working on a whole list of housing efforts on Beacon Hill. The second piece has been an influx of migrants who are arriving in Massachusetts, many of them who are Haitian asylum seekers, and that's further strained the EA shelter system. Asylum seekers have legal status in the United States. That is with the consent and knowledge of the Department of Homeland Security. In the last month alone, 800 new families entered the emergency shelter system in Massachusetts. And really, this is a failure, a longstanding failure of our federal government that has failed under Democratic and Republican administrations to address immigration reform. Congress last addressed immigration reform 37 years ago in 1986, which is the year I was born. And, you know, both, as I've said, both Republicans and Democrats at the national level have failed on this issue, despite repeated chances to reform our broken immigration system and naturalization systems.
This is so important to us that just know that we are truly working. We know that housing is a big issue on the Cape and in our districts, and we are really trying to do the best things for us. But we also have to. There's a law out there that, you know, we have to make sure that we take care of these people that have come in. So we're trying to do it the best way we can, but also being very, very careful on. We're not trying to offend or get people all up in an uproar. We're just trying to do the right thing for everybody, and we all have to work truly together on this difficult time. And Julian, again, and I are really working together to try to make sure that we send letters out to the president to let him know, hey, we do need it. We need some help here because a housing issue is already at a all-time high. We have an issue, and then to bring people in even more is troubling and is stressful. So we are truly trying to come with the best scenario of trying to calm it down and try to make sure that we're doing the best for these families.
I also want to mention the DY School District. They were incredibly prepared. And in my meeting with the new superintendent, Mark Smith, he made it very clear, as did the news article that went out a few days ago, that they are very used to welcoming new arrivals. So I really think that they've done a fantastic job. Those of us who have been in the housing industry know, and it was mentioned at your last meeting, that people are being warehoused, and I think that there's some truth to that, and I think it's important for myself, the delegation, and certainly working with municipalities to find other ways in which that we can house them. And I know that congregate living has been brought up before at your meetings, and we're certainly working with the administration to offer different opportunities to house the homeless population here, both on Cape Cod and Massachusetts.
Thank you for joining us this evening. If you have a story that you would like to see covered on our show, send us an email at newstip@capemedia.org. Tune in every week for more hyperlocal news that matters on Channel 26, Apple TV, Roku, and Fire TV. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media, including Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. For Cape Media News, as always, I'm Lauren Williamson.